Okay, calm down.
And what do you think of the way that the terms anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism have been kind of conflated?
Quite a few years ago, as well, when I was living in Europe, and the Israelis, the IDF were doing these ethnic mowing the lawn. Yeah, where they go in and the IDF and kill off the leadership and the children. These snipers who shoot these children in the back because the children have thrown some rocks, and I've observed all that. And then I noticed the term anti-Semitism was used all the time. And I thought to myself, this is not anti-Semitism. This is, we are, in the diaspora, we're collateral damage. We are the what's called the anti-Semitism is really the local population, like in France, it's the North African population, going after the Jews indiscriminately because of what's going on in the Middle East. They can't go there and fight back, so they take out their anger against local Jews, and I could understand that. Of course, I'd rather it wouldn't happen, but I could understand that they were really, really upset. And then I realized that this term anti-Semitic, they weren't anti-Jewish, they were anti-Israeli. They were anti-Israeli behavior. And then when Israel stopped doing that, of course, those types of things didn't go on in Europe anymore. And then I remember reading about different Jewish communities in Europe, the diaspora again, because there's a big difference between the diaspora Jewry and Israelis. Israelis don't care about the diaspora, in terms of what's called anti-Semitism. But a lot of other communities in Europe will be writing letters to Israel saying, look, our local people, this is where this collateral damage terminology comes in, our local people are catching hell because of what you guys did. There's this so-called anti-Semitism against local Jews because of what you did. And we don't really have anything to do or say about that. Maybe you should warn us if you're going to do that, because, we might participate in these discussions. But the Israeli government couldn't care less. They only care about, Jewish money. And so the term anti-Semitism, at some point, I realized it's being conflated with anti-Zionism or anti-Israel actions. And now it's got to the point now with the International Holocaust Association or something. It's a new group who are consciously, they've rewritten the definition of anti-Semitism, where they actually conflate those two terms and say that anti-Zionism or anti-Israel actions or insults or whatever it is considered anti-Semitism. Well, I don't think it is. It's not anti-Jewish. It's anti-state, anti-Israeli state actions, behavior. And when the state becomes the way it is in Gaza, and then I said, you're whipping up real anti-Jewish. It's going to happen in campuses and stuff. That people are going to take it out on the local Jews. Don't be surprised. And so what we've had in the last few months suddenly is this rise in so-called anti-Semitism. And all these Jewish organizations that I call professional Jews because they make money off being Jews. I mean, they lead Jewish organizations. That's where they get their paycheck from. And the term anti-Semitism is a great fundraising tool. And these Jews are already scared to death, especially survivors, and they believe they're being attacked because they're Jews. No. They're being attacked because the state of Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. That's why they're being attacked.
And pretending to represent all Jews and speak for all Jews.
That's right. They don't. They couldn't care less. And what's happening for years, because I've been involved in education, and I've created these Holocaust education committees, etc. And it's always been the same, that these Jewish kids go off to college and they meet these Arab Palestinian kids at these, like they have these tables, where they'll have an educational point. And these Arab kids are are saying, look what you guys are doing to our people back there, these Jewish kids don't know how to respond. And so the Jewish community consciously has had to train these Jewish kids how to respond to these questions that the Arab kids are raising about you're killing civilians, you're killing children. How do you explain that? So they're having these discussions. Now, these discussions by the Jewish leadership are considered anti Semitic. They're considered anti Semitic, but they're just having dialogue. So everything becomes anti Semitism to the degree where, to me, it ceases to have any meaning. But this organization, the IHAV, I think it's, are going around state by state, making sure that the state has a law. And this is the help with APAC. APAC comes in, or Jewish Law.
IHRA, the IHRA, yeah. That's what you're talking about. The
Say again?
international IHRA, the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance.
Exactly.
Yeah, and they have a working definition of anti-Semitism. The IHRA definition, yeah.
Right, and you should look up that it's just incredible. It's the only country in the world where you're not allowed to say anything without being called a name. Nobody likes to be called an anti-Semite or a racist, but that's what they're doing, and they're making it into law. There's about I don't know how many states,
yeah.
United States that have signed that. So these Jewish kids had to be trained in order to answer some of these things in these dialogues. But the dialogues, according to Jewish organizations, the professionals, the leadership, they have to train them, and they again, the anti-Semitism. It's. I mean, I don't know how much mail I get from these organizations trying to raise money, and the letter would be with anti-Semitism is on the rise on the envelope. I mean, me coming from Europe, that would have been if it's really anti-Semitism going on, you wouldn't. Anyway, that's the terminology. So when you hear the word, you really have to think, how much does this have to do with Israel actions?
And then also, like the ADL considers Jewish Voice for Peace a hate group. So their protests would be considered, I'm sure, anti-Semitic, even though it's, I mean, absurd because it's a bunch of Jewish anti-Zionists. But here's, by the way, a photo of you, speaking of Jewish Voice for Peace, with a Jewish Voice for Peace sign, says Jews and allies say never again for anyone. And here's the video of you shutting down traffic, lying down in the middle of traffic.
My white flag. Yeah, that's me on the ground, and then my friend Nabil joined me, and we were there for a few minutes at the intersection right next to the Holocaust Museum. We want to know what the Holocaust Museum has to say about Gaza. I mean, they've got, of course, and they help indoctrinate the population about Jewish suffering, etc. And that's correct, Jewish suffering. But now they have to deal with, in the same way, the Rwandan genocide. They dealt with that. What are they going to say about Gaza? What do they say about the Nakba? The more we learn about the Nakba, how do they describe it? Those are, those are pretty important. So we had a demonstration in front of the Holocaust Museum, and then we walked over to this large intersection, and I carried a white flag because if you remember, there were these, I think they were Israelis, but they carried a white flag, and they were shot by the Israelis.
Three of the hostages, the three hostages who carried white flags and were speaking in Hebrew, and they shot things. Yeah,
and they were killed. They were killed.
Yeah, they were killed. Yeah,
long distance.
They shoot anything that moves.
Right, and the snipers, these snipers who are, considered. We have movies from Hollywood about snipers and how they're looked up to. So, Hollywood is an interesting place because it's got both liberals and very right wing people, and a lot of the money comes that goes into supporting all this right wing stuff comes from U.S. Billionaires like Adelson, who made his money in Las Vegas, and APAC, which is another story, but people should look up APAC, which is considered a and also Canary Mission.
Oh,
Canary Mission
yes.
is extremely important, very much under the radar, but they destroy the lives of these young people who oppose genocide, and they keep doing that. So they give you a mark. So years from now, you go out and try to get a job, and people say, "But by the way, we just checked your background, and you were kind of a troublemaker,
You're
and
an anti-Semite
you're an anti-Semite,
or
etc."
self-loathing Jew. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's Canary Mission.